So I'm Daniel. Glad to be here. Marianne invited me. I've been coding computers since '75 and started doing websites in '95, and then discovered WordPress in 2008. And once I saw how great WordPress was, I stopped building my own content management system. Wise move, and just focused on customizing WordPress as a developer. So that's a little bit about my background. And when I'm not coding, I'm probably out for a bike ride. So if you're a road rider and like Strava, maybe we can go for a ride sometime. So custom post types. Let's see. There we go. So when you look at WordPress and log into WordPress in the back end, you see a lot of familiar things like posts, where blogging started, and pages. So that works for a lot of websites, but I had a particular client that was going to have a website with a lot of musicians. And for them, they called the musicians artists. And so the question was, well, could we make this really easy and put artists in the WordPress backend? So I began to look at what was out there, and this is what I added, artists. So now you have posts, pages, and artists. So we're using words that the users of the website are going to understand and make sense to them. So instead of them learning something new, they just go, oh, I want to add a new artist. I click on artists, and it becomes an out-of-the-box experience that's pleasant for them. So what does the artist page look like? So I included a page here, and this is an artist, and you'll see there's several of the next screens are all the same page. They have dozens of information that they want associated with every artist. So you get the birthplace, the gender, tribes, instruments, roles, genres, biography of the artist. Going on farther down the page, they have performances. They'll have a bunch of YouTube videos. So those are available on the page. And wait, there's much, much more. They have tutorials for the artists, which also have up to 4 YouTube videos. And they have the tribe that they belong to, and the tribe can also have videos to give history of the tribe. And then at the very bottom of each artist page are a list of references. So I'm a developer, and so I worked with a designer, and the designer kind of sketched out what this artist page should look like. And then I went off and built it, and then we collaborated and showed it to the client to make the client happy. So that's what the client sees. The client's very happy. And now we'll kind of get into, how did I go about adding all that kind of special content into WordPress? So there are lots of plugins out there. This one I happen to like because they have over 1 million installations of it, and it's called Custom Post Type UI from a company called Web Dev Studios. And it gets a real high rating. Lots of people are using it. They have a free version and they have a pro version. A free version was good enough for me, so that's what I used. So what the Custom Post Type UI lets me do is add artists. So I install the plugin and I click on the plugin in the control panel, and I say I want to add a new type, and they call it in WordPress speak a post type. So I gave the post type a name, artists. When you're browsing a page, it'll have the word artists, lowercase a, in the URL of the page. So just within a few minutes, I've got artists added to the back end of WordPress. It's very fun feeling to do that. Another thing I did was added a second plugin called Advanced Custom Fields. And what this is going to let me do, and also with advanced custom fields, it has 2 million active installations. So, very mature plugin from a well-respected company, WP Engine. Of course, they have a free version and a paid version. Free was good enough for me, so off we go. And this is going to let me add all those dozens of fields that the developer or the designer had specified. So first thing we do is we created something called a field group. I called the field group artists, and I assigned it to the post type called artists, just for kind of consistency, linguistic consistency. So I set that up, and then I go about saying, here are the names of the fields. So if you remember browsing the web page, one of the first fields was birthplace, and then gender or pronouns, and then tribes, and then instruments. So there's all these fields, and a field can be something simple like a text field, a taxonomy field, that would be something like a category. So these musicians have different genres, and so I made the genres a category, or what WordPress calls a taxonomy. If a field has lots of text, more than a few words, I make it a WYSIWYG editor. So that's a field type that I can choose. And then I can start to take multiple fields together and make a group, and then copy and duplicate the group. So you can start to do some automation things so you're not typing so much. So just with these 4 things, text, taxonomy, WYSIWYG editor, and group, I was able to complete the fields using this plugin. And this is all, once again, for the back end for the WordPress user that wants to add a new artist to their website.
What is a taxonomy? How is that different?
Taxonomy for me just translates into category. So like when you have a post, you can choose a category that post belongs to. So for example, with this artist, you could have a genre, and the taxonomy could be choices like rhythm and blue, rock and roll, sacred, classical, whatever.
Okay.
So these are just names so that if someone visits one artist and they like that genre, they can click on that genre, and there's a hyperlink, and all other artists with the same genre will then appear. So you get all this goodness of being able to serendipity, visit one artist, like the genre, click the genre, and find other artists with the same genre. So WordPress has that all baked in automatically. It's really kind of a fun, powerful feature for visitors. So once I've defined all those fields, in the back end of WordPress, you go to artists, and you just start to add an artist like you would add a post, like you would add a page, except you've got all these special fields that have been defined that make sense to you and only you and your project. So they just go down, scrolling away and filling out fields. Fields can be mandatory, required, or they can be optional. And so for this particular project, there are actually 22 fields associated with every artist. So that's quite a lot of information. Here I've got the genre shown, and I've got 4 different genres with checkboxes. And so that's part of the taxonomy. And then you can see the biography field is a WYSIWYG editor. So very much like the old-fashioned editor in WordPress. So this is what you would see if you were literally scrolling in the back end of WordPress, adding a brand new artist. You just fill these things out. So for groups, there's an area called performance, and they can share up to 4 different performances. And so each performance group has 6 fields. It has a title, a format, a date, a duration, a note, and then the YouTube address. So they can have up to 4 of these YouTube performances for each artist. And if these are all optional, so if they have no YouTube performances, then this area would just say performance, and then there would be a blank below the word performance. But it just gives a way to give a structure to how the information is displayed that made sense to the designer and made sense to the client. So artists, we've got these groups, performance is a group. So far, everything I've shown you is all back end of WordPress. You know, you install a couple plugins, you define a bunch of fields, you start to fill the fields out. So, you know, we've got a post type called artist that shows up in the back end. We've got a field group with 22 fields in it. Anybody can add a new artist if they have a WordPress account and they're an editor. The only problem is our theme knows nothing about artists. The only thing our theme knows about are pages and posts. So we've added something foreign to our theme. And so there's no way to visualize all this good data. So what we have to do is make our theme a little bit smarter. And so we're going to add something to the theme. And instead of changing theme files, we do something called a child theme. So we make a child theme, which references now the parent theme. And the child has one new file that the parent doesn't know anything about. And that new file is called single-artists.php. So the hyphen artists part comes out because we added a new type, a new custom post type, and we called that post type artists. So this theme file is just called single-artists.php, and then WordPress is all happy. Now WordPress, when we click on an artist, goes, okay, I'm going to call up this theme file, and this theme file is going to display those 22 fields. So, you know, so it does take some programming here. I happen to have a theme that I like over the past year I've come to use. It's called Neve, N-E-V-E. They have a free version and a pro version. I like the free version so much that I paid the $59 a year to get the pro version. And probably the last 10 websites I've done, I've used Neve on all of them and used the pro version on all of them. So that's what I used again on this one. So to get this single artists.php file, I started off with the parent theme, with the parent Neve theme. And I think I just took the index.php, or maybe I took the page.php, one of those two files as my starting point, and then I modified it. So I'll show you what I modified. So here on the right side, is some code. The language of WordPress is PHP. The keywords are in purple. So we have an if statement, a while statement. So the if and while statement, this is called the loop. So it's going to loop through all the artist posts and start to display something. And one other requirement of this site is they didn't want just anybody to see the artists. They only wanted people that were registered and logged in to see artists. So I have an if statement. If the user is logged in, then they're going to see something. If the user is not logged in, they get a little notice going, hey, you're not logged in. Not going to show you anything. So I just have a bunch of echo statements. So I'm going to echo the birthplace. And then I use a little function called getField, which came from our plugin. So I get a field called birthplace. I have gender or pronouns, so I get a field called gender. I have tribes, so I have a get field for tribes. And so for every one of these 22 fields that I want to visually display to the visitor on the website, I have an echo statement. And somewhere in that echo statement, I have a get field. And then for taxonomy, I have something called get terms. So basically, just a handful of functions are used to help visualize what goes on the artist's page. So I just define this one time, and it's used for every page, every instance that people want to browse an artist. So what I've gone through in this presentation is introduce the idea of a custom post type. So when WordPress started out, it was 100% blogging platform. The only thing the first version of WordPress had were posts. And so it was 100% blogging, and the bloggers said, hey, I want to have an About Us page. I want a home page. And so over time, WordPress said, okay, we're going to now add pages. So now you had two types of posts, blog posts and pages. But they had the foresight to architecturally code it so that you could extend it, and you, the developer, could add as many types of information as you wanted to. It was only left up to your creativity. So that's one of the genius points, in my opinion, of WordPress, is that they had foresight to make it user extendable and not a closed system. So it's very well documented, very much extendable. And most of us just use plugins to extend it. And in this case, I use 2 plugins and a little bit of code to get this done. So the 2 free plugins were mentioned. They're great. I did use a child theme, which was a little bit of coding. A child theme, I think I had that one single hyphen artist.php and a style.css and a functions.php. So I think I had 3 files to make up a child theme. So a child theme is a pretty straightforward task, not too tough. Most of the coding was in single artists. So this is just one way to extend WordPress, to add content like artists. Could be books, could be movies, could be any type of information that you want to. But in this case, it was artists. And hopefully this will make it easier for the users of the website to maintain their own site once they get fully trained. So that's my wonderful presentation, and certainly open to any questions you might have.
I had comments. I thought you did a really nice job of describing that. I just wanted to add that I just converted a Drupal site to a WordPress site and used a plugin called FG Drupal, I don't know, whatever, something like that, Drupal to WordPress. And they loaded all the Drupal content types into that plugin they used the plugin you just showed us, the I forget what you called it, the
advanced custom fields.
No, well, yeah, use that, but it also used the other one.
Custom post type UI.
Yeah, it used that. It was really slick. So if anyone has to do that, that was like a really great way. And then I had another question. What's the difference do you know what the difference between a group is and a repeater?
Yeah, so a repeater would let your user, so let's say your artist has written 11 songs or 10 songs or 6 songs or 23 songs. We don't know how many songs they've written, but they've written a bunch. And we want to put a link to each of their songs. And so you would use a repeater field and just say songs, and there would be a plus sign next to it. So they could enter one song, click on it, enter a second song, click on it, enter a third song. So whatever, so that would be like a text or a URL field. The repeater would let them enter that same type as many times as they wanted to, with no predetermined limit. So that's and I think the repeater field, I think you have to pay money to get the repeater field. I think that's where the difference between the free and the paid one is. The more sophisticated ones are paid features.
Yeah, that is a pro feature. So you're saying, though, you're using groups. So you had 5 of those pieces in there on the back end you said you limited it to the amount?
Yeah, I used groups in several places, but we had predetermined that they would have a max of 4 videos in each of the groups. And I think I did 3 or 4 groups. since it was just easier to create a group and then copy and duplicate it.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I mean, everything I'm doing with these plugins, if you're gung-ho and you love code, you could have just used code. You know, so it would have been smaller and faster and hardwired to that one client, and the client wouldn't be able to make changes. By using these plugins, there's a chance that the client could modify things themselves and change the wording themselves and make small updates themselves.
One of the things that custom post UI does is it gives you an option to actually get the code. You know, it'll actually generate the code for that custom post type, and then you could drop it in as your own plugin into the, you know, must use plugin area, which is kind of nice. And then you can remove, you know, the custom post type UI, so nobody messes with it.
Yeah, and that's, you know, if you've got curious clients and they see a plugin and they start clicking on the plugin, it's just like, no, you really don't want to be clicking on that. That's for a developer.
Well, you know, sometimes if they have a, you know, a support ticket that they need to deal with, and somebody says, yeah, just you know, deactivate all your plugins and start, and they go, wait a minute, where did all my content go? You know, because
right.
that happened with both advanced custom fields and post type UI. So that way, if they put it into a plugin, put it in the must use area, nobody's going to hear it. It's just going to be there all the time. So
yeah, and I can just show you real quickly what the website looks like. So this is that page we were talking about. So this is an artist page, and then this is all the custom information that's been entered. And you can just kind of scroll and see how exhaustive that information is.
yeah, right.
That's pretty cool. There were some questions posted in the comments here.
Okay.
One was, what kind of bike racing did you do?
Yeah, I was asking, I introduced myself as an avid cyclist, and I think Jean said that she was a former bike racer.
Oh, it's Jean was a former.
Yeah, so I wanted to know if you were like a cyclocross, road, mountain bike, you know, because there's different tribes of cyclists. We're not the same, and we make fun of each other.
Yeah, I answered you personally because I didn't think anybody else cared.
Oh, okay.
But I was a road racer, and I did crits and track. I'm not into mountain biking or cyclocross, or I don't like time trials. I don't like to hurt that long all by myself.
Nice. So you probably have some road rash to prove that you're a racer.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The knees are real good. Oh,
So I see one person asked, how do you make a field a required field? So it's just a checkbox. You click the checkbox, required or not required. So it's real simple, real easy to make it required.
Cool, thank you.
Can you reference other than YouTube for video source? You know, I think Vimeo and YouTube would both embed pretty much the same way. This client only had YouTube, but I'm pretty sure you could go ahead and use Vimeo as well.
Yeah, you can use either. Yeah.
And then theme for the site. I think that was Neve, right? Yeah, Neve for the site, and then the child theme was just a child of Neve. So now that I, you know, have a child theme and I have that special single artist.php file, if I go into WordPress and change my theme to like 2023, the pages would be fine, the posts would be fine, but the 2023 theme doesn't know anything about artists. And so it wouldn't display artists. And so I would have to go into 2023, make a child theme of 2023, and copy paste some of that custom code into the child theme of 2023. So, when you start going off and doing stuff like custom post types, it does impact your flexibility on swapping in and out between different themes. So you're going to have to call your developer up again, and they're going to have to charge you again, but not much. It's pretty quick.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
My voice is a little bit going, so bear with me here. I set up a website with some custom post types and fields as well. It was a plant nursery, a mail order plant nursery. It is a plant nursery, and so I set up a plant type to fill in. And there was one design decision that I sort of grappled with. I'm not sure if this is going to resonate with you or not, but I was trying to figure out what I should make a field and what I should make a category or a tag. And I was wondering if you went through that dilemma at all as well. So when I was creating this plant type, I ended up creating a category for that plant that said whether it was a cactus or a grass or a perennial or a shrub, etc. And I chose to do that, but I didn't necessarily need to do that. I could have made it another custom field, and I really went back and forth about what if there was an advantage to one or the other. And I wondered when you were setting up this website whether you went through a similar decision process.
Yeah, the designer didn't have any specification to click on anything, so the designer had no requirement for categories or taxonomy. But I, in my experience, realized that, hey, someone's looking at 22 fields. They might want to start with this artist and end up at another artist. And the quickest way to do that is with taxonomy or with categories. So I just knew from personal experience, if you're into music, you click on genre and, you stick with your genre and find all the artists that meet that genre. So I just knew from my own experience. And so I just threw that in there as an extra thing that was not really required. But So really, if someone wants to serendipity, start on one plant and then click on related plants, only you know what related would be, and so that's where the domain knowledge comes in, knowing where to do that. So if it was like a book collection and I had books, I might have genre. I have fiction, nonfiction, scary, Stephen King, sci-fi. So you'd want them to stay on your website as long as possible to get as much information as possible.
Okay.
I have a question on that topic. Is there any way, does anyone know if you have a taxonomy field on a custom post type, is there any way to make it required? Because it's not an ACF field, it's a taxonomy field.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a good question.
Yeah, use the plugin by Publish Press called Checklists, and I'll drop a link for it.
Oh, thank you.
You may have to use the paid version of it, but there is a free version that works for most things.
Yeah, I've never had a required taxonomy or category before, mostly because WordPress itself doesn't require it. So, but it's everyone knows. This all comes down to information architecture. So you can actually get a degree in school called information architect. So it's a whole domain to itself. It's just what is logical and what is consistent and what should the user be able to look at and peruse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I'm working on websites now, I find myself using more and more custom post types, multiples of them. It just clears the deck, so to speak, of cruft that you wind up having. Like if you have 30 pages, you don't need 30 pages, but you could certainly park some of those things into a custom post type.
And with some of the newer WordPress themes, haven't they been adding some more post types? Maybe is that in Jetpack? It seems like there's a couple post types beyond posts and pages that you can now click on and add.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are many plugins that are using custom posts. Like WooCommerce is a custom post type, and you can think of usually a testimonial plugin is a custom post type because they're putting testimonials over there on the menu bar over there. So there's a lot of plugins that'll actually utilize the custom post types, and you can see because it's a way to collect grouped information that makes sense, like WooCommerce. You're not going to put in 300, 400 pages of your products, on a page, on the next page, on the next page. So keeping it organized in that custom post type manner is really great.
Yeah, I guess Jetpack adds the idea of a portfolio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've never used it. I've seen it before when I've installed Jetpack, where it says, "Hey, you've got portfolio. You can do a portfolio."
If I had been doing this, I might have done it in a slightly different way. And I'm wondering if it would even be possible to do it as smoothly as you did. So the way I would probably have done it is said, okay, artists will be a category. And the client can add posts and put them under the category of artists, and they'll all show up on this one drop down. Is it possible to add custom post types into a specific category so they'll have fields to fill out?
Yeah. So that's another way to go about the same problem. You're right. So you can just go to posts. You can add a category called artists, and on a certain page, you can say just display all posts of type category, and so you'll get your list. But then visualizing all those 22 custom fields, you need something. You need something to put those 22 fields on. I think advanced custom fields will say if this is a post category of artists, then and only then show these 22 fields.
But you could add those 22 fields in advanced custom fields and say this only goes into the post type of artists.
Right.